Right, so Brexit continues, and Theresa May continues with their sort of conning of the British people. It's absolutely outrageous what is going on. What is going to happen, it's becoming clear to everybody now with Brexit, is that we're going to remain within the rules and regulations of the European Union. We're going to remain under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. But superficially, we're going to leave the European Union because we're no longer going to partake in its political formats. We're not going to have MEPs. We're not going to have commissioners. We're not going to be part of European institutions. So we're in a far worse situation, at least superficially, in that we're going to be subject to the scheming of the European Union, but the illusion of political inclusion is now over. Now, Theresa May is still selling her pitch like we're actually going to leave the European Union, and we're not. She's just kicked the can down the road. We're talking about a new 2-year transition period to 2021. Transition to what? We're not going to shed any regulations. We're not going to develop new trade deals with other countries. We've had 2 years supposedly to transition from the vote to the Brexit, and that's just been a wasted time. Because the reality is, and it's dawning on the British people now, everything is going to remain the same. And to stifle any criticism of this, we've now got a second Project Fear. We're being told that if we leave without a deal, the economy will collapse, there'll be widespread food shortages, even the water we won't be able to drink any water anymore. It's all nonsense on stilts. It's coming from Mark Carney in the Bank of England. It's coming from within the civil service. It's coming from the whole panoply of organisations which are pro-EU, which have pushed to keep us in the EU and to deny us the leave vote that we actually exercised. So Project Fear is now underway. And when they're trying to scare the people, that they haven't got a reasonable argument to make, that they're totally wrong in what they're doing. And if the British people could actually realise that they're being sold down the river, they would rise up in rebellion against this. And we need the Tory MPs who do know what's happening, who can see through the mirage and do realise that this is a complete sellout. They need to rise and they need to challenge this and vote against it in Parliament. There's going to be a vote, I think it's going to be the 11th of December in Parliament, whether this so-called deal, which is really just a surrender to the Brussels bureaucracy, whether this deal is acceptable or not. Now, the mathematics is that 92, 93, maybe up to 98 Tory MPs will actually vote against this, as will the Labour Party, supposedly, and defeat it in Parliament. But I don't trust the Labour Party on this issue. I think the Labour Party wants to keep us trapped in the European institutions. Even this so-called populist, left-wing populist Labour Party of Jeremy Corbyn, it's still willing to sell us out for the sake of the European Union. That's where its loyalty really lies. We have to get to the reality of what the European Union is all about. The European Union is controlled by 2 countries, France, especially the French bureaucracy, and Germany, especially the German sort of corporate power, the power of the German economy and German industrialists. They pay for the European Union. The French bureaucrats rule the European Union. And they have created this whole vision of a united Europe under their control, a new Holy Roman Empire. But it's a failure. This is the truth. It's going to be a failure because the southern countries around the Mediterranean don't really take it seriously, this whole power grab by the EU. As we're seeing in Italy, they just shrug their shoulders when the EU try and clamp down on them. They're not interested. They're never taken to court because they'll never turn up. And the Eastern Bloc, the Visegrad countries, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, they just regard the EU as a bit of a cash cow and a bit of a security against future Russian advancement. So these countries don't really take the European Union and its regulations seriously. But the European Union needs Britain. It needs the City of London as a source of financial strength. And that's why they're so keen to keep Britain involved in these whole processes, this whole structure. Now, the civil service is on board with the French bureaucracy, the English civil service. They have concocted this whole surrender. It's there. Although, I mean, at the last general election, the Tories promised that we would leave the single market, that we would leave the customs union, that we would break free of the shackles of Brussels, that we would become part of the free trading world again. We would renew our contacts and our bridges with the Commonwealth countries, with the United States, and we would become an expansionist nation again on the global arena. This was the great promise of Brexit, and this was the great potential that was presented to us. And the Tories laid this out at the last general election. This is what we're going to actually do. But of course, they've done the exact reverse. They've kept us shackled. They've excluded us from renewing our links with America and the Commonwealth. I mean, 4 months ago, Trump offered Theresa May a trade deal, and she turned it down. Because now she is totally committed to the Merkel-Macron plan of a united Europe under the French bureaucracy and the German industrialists. Now, what is really sinister about their vision of a united Europe is that they've gone from bringing the peoples of Europe together to creating what they've termed Eurabia. They now want to mix all the people of Europe and North Africa and the Middle East and even Africa itself together. They're like mixing yogurt with vinegar. You know, they're creating a catastrophe across Europe, a cultural catastrophe. Multiculturalism, that's what it is, a cultural catastrophe. They're bringing forces into Europe en masse, by the million. You know, from North Africa, from Black Africa, from the Middle East. We've seen this great surge of immigrants coming into to continental Europe and then spilling over into Britain. Of course, we have our own mass immigration from the Indian subcontinent. And this is totally transforming our nations inwardly. So we're losing our national sovereignty, the ability to control our own destiny, and we're losing our social cohesion and our social foundations. We're losing our own history. We're losing our own people. Suddenly, the British are going to become almost a sideshow in Britain. We're going to be relegated. And these new communities, they call it, these minorities which are being empowered and are growing rapidly, they're asserting themselves and their interest takes precedence over ours. They get control of our resources, they get control of our cities, and they get control of our politics eventually. This is the scenario that's unfolding, and the European Union are very happy with that. They actually want to undermine the nation states of Europe and create this dominant bureaucracy, presides over a Europe which is chaotic, but which they control. This is the unfolding reality that we're faced with, and we have to respond to that. We can't accept it. This is what the whole pushback is about with Salvini in Italy, with Trump in America, with all the nationalist forces that are arising, the populist forces across the West. We don't want this future. We want a future where our states are secure, we have national security, where our traditions are respected, and where our people are still in control. And Theresa May no longer believes that. She is batting for the enemy. And if the Tory party support her in this deal stroke surrender, they will go into the rubbish bin of history. Now, they've just come back from Maastricht. Maastricht inflicted really 18 years of torture on the Tory party. Maastricht was a fudge of the European issue then on the major. He deceived us then. We knew we were being deceived. He deceived us about Maastricht and its intentions. And he thought, and the way he's blackmailed the Tory MPs was to say, if you don't go along with this agenda, you will lose your seats. I'll have a general election, Labour will come into power, and you'll be wiped out. But that's what happened anyway. Because fudging the issue and showing weakness and cowardice, surrendering to the forces that want to subjugate us, might win the Tory party a little window of time, but it will not save them. It will destroy them. We need a totally different Conservative Party. Conservative Party which says, look, we're batting for Britain. We're going to put Britain first, just as Trump has put America first. We have to get back on the patriotic train. We have to forget all this globalism. It's leading us on the path of ruin. So the British people need to make their voices heard on this. We need truth. Do not be intimidated by the Project Fear. Join vehicles, political parties and formats which are speaking the truth. And I still believe we're going to overcome this issue. It will take time, but the truth will out. I hope you've enjoyed this channel. There's a subscription button. Hit the subscription button. The many subscribers we have as possible, the better. There's also a donation button. If you'd like to make a contribution to this channel, there's a PayPal link in the description. We're hoping to buy new cameras. We're hoping to buy a camera which will enable us to film on the rally. We need constantly, equipment has to be renewed, and we have to pay travel costs to go to these places. The better the equipment we have, the more videos we can make, the easier we can make them. So if you can afford to make any donation at all, I would very much appreciate that. Thank you.